First of all, thank you for not killing any children on screen during the Panama chaos.
We did so many off screens.
That little pink Converse. Are you kidding me?
Only bad kids.
I want to know everything about shooting that scene. It seems like such a daunting thing to have come across. It is so beautiful in how terrible it is.
It's maybe the most memorable sequence in the first book, and is one of the big tentpole sequences in the season. So we knew that that's where a lot of our resources, not just money, but time and mental anguish, were going to be spent. Not just the three of us by any means, but Mickey Spiro, the director, all of our department heads, everyone was marshaling all of our resources into that. And a lot of the challenge was, this is a sequence that everyone remembers in the books, but because it's a novel, everyone has staged it in their minds in their own way. And how are you going to realize it on screen in a way that can top even that? Luckily, we have the best of the best, taking care of the VFX and the production design and the practical special effects. Mickey wanted to do a lot of things in camera. There was a lot of question of the balance of how much of the gore that you want to see, because it is obviously a gory sequence, and how much of it is in the mind. And at the center of all of this, one of the things that makes it memorable, not just because of the spectacle of it, is the moral quandary in the middle of it, where ostensibly the good guys are killing a lot of people, many of whom have no choice in the matter, children who are completely innocent, for some other greater good. And Augie is the character who really wrestles with that the most. And you see Raj, who sort of subsumes a lot of it, and Wade, who's gung-ho, like kill as many of them as need be. You feel that anguish that Augie is feeling, and Raj is feeling, and the exhilaration presumably that Wade is feeling. It's a sequence, in fact, that we reshot because we wanted to get that really, really dialed in, because that's just as important as everything that's happening on the ship.
Congratulations, Dr. Salazar.
David, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how much was practical, how much was effects. I'm thinking in particular of the paper dolls that get
Right. So it's funny because we were talking before about the sequence, and I was saying that's my favorite shot in the whole sequence, and it's not a bloody shot, but for whatever reason, that and probably the book bags being sliced were my two favorite shots. Book bags is practical. Although we had to, I think, tweak the timing a little bit in post because one of them fell too early. But the paper cutouts were there; they're real and everything. But then to get the fluttering effect and all, that was a VFX ad, right? So
yeah, it was a combination.
So even though it looks like it's just paper, it was like a really tricky shot to get right. And we spent so much time working on the timing of that. Like, should we add a few more frames to the head of it? And then, as it's the kind of jaw shot as it's moving closer and closer to the woman standing in the doorway there. But as Alex said, it's so much of this was my memories of prepping this sequence was all these meetings we'd have standing in the corridors of the ship that Deb Riley, our production designer, made. And then with Minky, Minky, our incredible director, kind of like walking down the corridor. We'd have lights set up that would mimic the timing of the wires as they're coming through the ship. Basically what you need is really hardworking people really talented people who are going to spend months prepping this thing. So it was Minky, Deb Riley, Bernie Caulfield, basically a lot of women who worked a lot harder than the three of us. And that's what made it work,
Raising the diamond. Nanofiber lattice is active.
And DB, did you always have the scene toward the beginning of the show where we essentially see this happen in miniature, right? In Augie's lab, she taps the cube and it falls into slices. Was that part of it, or did you feel like you had to add that after to make it super clear what was happening in the ship?
No, we always thought it was one of the ship sequence we knew was kind of going to be the big centerpiece that we've been discussing. But for it to be effective, you can't have anybody explaining what's going on while it's going on, because that completely destroys it. So for it to be effective, you need to put all of the ideas on the table before that and introduce them to people so they're familiar with them, but you can't let them know when that's happening. You can't let them know that I know this is really dull, but pay attention to it because it's going to become important later. It needs to pull its own weight in that moment.
You did it! You made history, Augie! have to shut it down. Shut it down.
The scene with Augie in the lab where she's testing her nanofibers is based on a scene in the book. I believe, I'm trying to remember the differences between what we've got and what are in the book start to get jumbled in your mind after 5 years. But
I don't think there's diamonds. Though.
but there, yeah, it was a different. It was not as overt.
Right.
It's not as visual a scene, I would say, and we knew that it was important to show people in miniature what was going to happen without them knowing at all that it was heading in that direction, and to use it and to couch it in a dramatic scene that means a tremendous amount for the one person at the center of it. So if it works, then it's worked for her, and that's both wonderful and completely terrible because she knows that this thing she did that works, she needs to stop doing. It would have been almost easier if she had failed, because then stopping the work when the work wasn't going so well would have been less of a blow to her. And right there, that inner conflict in her, we're totally aware of like where she's coming from in that. And we think that that's what the scene's about. And so you kind of internalize this piece of information that you need to go forward to understand what's coming, but you don't know that that's what you've done.